Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Asif Qureshi. I'm a director of CF Society Pakistan. And on behalf of the society, I would like to welcome all of you to today's event, The Journey of a Young Pakistani Tech Entrepreneur, featuring Mr. Adnan Shafi. I met Adnan about a year back, just over a year ago, and immediately became his admirer because of his, not only his success in business, but also because of his personality. He came across as such a humble person, so I thought, it's very rare that you have humility and success in the same person. So I thought that, CF Society should take this opportunity and introduce Pakistan's upcoming entrepreneurs who've achieved a lot of success, so that people get inspired and think about starting their own businesses. So we thought we should invite Pakistan's Jeff Bezos to Karachi and introduce you to him. So we hope to learn a lot from Adnan as to what it takes to build, scale, and position a successful business in a general climate of gloom and doom. His story is a breath of fresh air, and hopefully we'll all walk out of this room much wiser after today's session. Very, very briefly about the format of today's session. So we're going to have a fireside chat with Adnan, followed by a moderated Q&A. You're all welcome to submit your questions using Slido. There's a QR code on your tables. You can use that. You go to the website slide.do and enter the code, passcodes, #CFA. Just a quick introduction about Adnan Shafi. He's a serial entrepreneur. Before Priceway, he founded a couple of other companies as well. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Priceway, which is Pakistan's leading e-commerce marketplace, specializing in authentic consumer electronics, especially mobile phones. And based on my conversation earlier, I think it seems that almost all of us are actually customers of Priceway, which is good to know. So in a way, we are already familiar with this company. Although it seems that they are expanding their range of products to other categories as well. So like I said before, Adnan previously founded 2 companies, and we'll get to hear about those companies as well, his journey, and why he decided to sell those companies. So Adnan's list of achievements and accomplishments is very long, so I'm just going to briefly mention about a couple of things here. He was featured by Forbes magazine as 30 under 30. He holds an MBA degree from Karachi School of Business and Leadership and a bachelor's degree in engineering. He also sits on the board of 2 companies and is a member of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce Industry and American Business Council. He is an enthusiast when it comes to data analytics and user experience. I would request Adnan to join me on the stage, and would request you to welcome while he joins us on the stage. Thank you. I request you to take us through your professional journey, starting from when you graduated from the university in electrical engineering degree, and then where you are today. What was the inspiration? What challenges you faced? Obviously, there must have been a lot of challenges that you would have encountered, and how you dealt with them. And tell us about the companies that you founded before Priceway and why you sold them. So over to you.
Thank you for inviting me here in this beautiful setting. Asif Sahab has constantly been saying the Jeff Bezos, but uske liye mujhe shayad ganja hona padega, so I'll have to lose a lot more hair. I think I am more like an accidental entrepreneur, because I never intended to become an entrepreneur. My father was a businessman. I always saw that he was very, very busy, and he has very limited time. So I always thought, I'll go and get a 9-to-5 job, because that was my dream. 5 p.m. I'll check out from the office, go play some squash, spend some time in the club, and then go back home. But after graduating from my intermediate, I wanted to go for my bachelor's. And I was not a very good student. So what really happened was I got in some good universities abroad, but Pakistan, I didn't apply it in a lot of universities. So what happened was that my mother in the end said that, you want to go out, but why don't you spend time here in Pakistan, because your brother also went did his bachelor's here, but he was out of home, so why don't you do that? So, and because I am very close with my mother, I said, sure, I'll do this. So mujhe, one of the universities that I really cared about and was passionate about in Pakistan was GIK, which is in Topi. It's a beautiful university, but the extracurricular activities there are just phenomenal. So even when I was in my metric and intermediate, I had some friends there. So I used to just go in summers, spend like a couple of weeks in the dorm, gaming all night and enjoying the hostel experience. But when the time came for me to apply to that university, because numbers इतने अच्छे नहीं थे, तो waiting list से कभी आगे नहीं गए. तो वहाँ पे फंस गए, and then I thought कि I'll probably wait a year and then apply next year. But then my dad said, the marks that you have right now, maybe the next year you'll also get stuck on the waiting list. So just get admission in whatever university that you get in and maybe try next year. And because the target was to always apply next year, the first university that I found was Bahria University in Islamabad. So I thought I'll just go there and spend a year and then reapply next year and then go. So that was the plan that I had. But what happened was, because we moved from Karachi to Islamabad in 2007, which was the year I was going to start my university, I had literally zero friends in Islamabad. It's a very small city. But I had not a lot of friends. So when I started my university, a week after we moved, I was doing electronics engineering because that is what I was always passionate about. And when I did the first week, I realized I have a lot of time at my hand. Because I was going to the university from 9 to 1, and then I had literally nothing to do. So what I did was I enrolled in a second degree program within the same university for computer science. So I was doing 2 degrees at the same time, doing electronics engineering in the morning and then computer science engineering in the evening shift. And during that course, like 1 year was good, but after that I feel bored again. And I thought, I might try out some different things. The good thing about that university was there were a lot of different student bodies and student societies which were very active. So they had a very active music society, a dramatic society, the president of the Dramatic Society at that time had directed Alpha Bravo Charlie's cinematography. So they did some good students with good accomplishments. So through that, I came across a society which was more focused on computer science. And by attending a lot of these different events, I met a couple of people who were doing really good. So I remember this young kid who was in his 9th grade at that time. He had his disability, so he couldn't walk. And because he was coming to the university because it was a 5-day event, and my job was to make sure that there was no hiccups from taking him from the car to the auditorium. And during those runs, we kind of developed a friendship. And I realized that this guy, even though he's in 9th grade, he's making a lot of money. And I was always curious, so I kind of asked him how he was doing it, and he said, Anand, there's a new concept called social media marketing. And this is before Facebook kind of came to Pakistan. This is the time when we had Orchid and MySpace, all these platforms coming up. And he said, there's a new concept through which you can make money. You promote different people's content online, and then they'll pay you for money. I said, this sounds ridiculous. Why would someone pay to market their product on a platform that nobody really knows about? So he said, just spend some time there. But I'll only advise you if you spend a minimum of 250 hours on a platform trying to understand how it works, and then talk to me. I was like, sure. So 6 months down the line, he calls me up. He was like, you never called me. You got scared or what? I said, no, I understood the game. I'm spending about 12 hours a day on the platform trying to understand that. And through that, we kind of realized that social media was a very different game at that time. So every platform has a certain algorithm running at the back end through which they promote content. So for them to figure out which content is best, there are certain parameters that they kind of select and see, and based on that, they promote different content. And while I was looking at that, I got really good at it. I met another guy at a wedding in Lahore. He was the chief social media marketing officer for Chicago Tribune at that time. And a Pakistani kid studying in college and then a chief marketing officer for Chicago Tribune. I was like, this is insane, man. Like, so I, just got him and we spent hours talking. And then I started, doing social media marketing for these different brands. I started getting a lot of contracts. I worked with some of the best agencies in the world, like Tim O'Reilly. We worked on Coca-Cola campaigns in Australia, all across the world. And at that time, I was making, still a student in my third year. By my second year, I was making about $5,000 a month. So that was really good. But the downside was I lost interest in studies. So even though I was doing 2 degrees at the same time, I kind of figured out that I only need to score enough GPA to qualify from a master's program, which is like 3. So I don't need to really study hard. 3 is good enough. So just focus on that. And then I calculated how many classes can I skip before getting dropped out from the university. So I started doing that as well. And in about 2 years, I was ranked among top 100 social media experts globally. And still, the same plan, working for a US company, making money in dollars. So that was the plan. That is how I was kind of working, and never thought I'll start something of my own. But through these platforms, I got a chance to meet Guy Kawasaki, who is the authority in social media globally. He was the chief evangelist of Apple and then left, became the chief evangelist for Google, very close with the Google founders, So through one of the platforms, I got a chance to interact with him, and he gave me like a 30 minutes time. In that 30 minutes, we had a lot of questions. And he kind of told me that, Adnan, the way social media companies or any platform would make money is by squeezing the natural reach of the content. So right now you're promoting the content based on certain algorithms, but as these platforms evolve and get more and more users on the platform, what will start to happen that they will reduce the natural reach of the content. And then few years later, the content that's good would no longer be good enough to get promoted. You'll have to spend money on that. He said, this is what Google did. It's a search company, but they're the largest advertisers in a marketing company in the world, and that's how they make money. Facebook is going to do the same. Dig, Reddit, all these platforms are going to do the same. So you lose your business or whatever you're earning in the next 2 years. And he said, this is what I saw in Google happening. This is what I saw on other platforms like MySpace, Reddit, Dig. So this will happen with other platforms as well. So if you really love what you're doing, just create your own platform. And it was kind of very difficult or a silly thing that he kind of said at that time, because start your own platform, like how can I start my own platform? It's like if you like a Mercedes, someone say go start your own car company. But I don't have the money for that. I don't have anything for that. So after that conversation, my brother was home for the weekend. We are 1 year apart and very close. So I shared, the conversation. We went on a 3-hour walk to Faisal Mosque, and from F11 to Faisal Mosque and back. And we were just having the conversation on how we can make this happen. And the good thing about student life is that you're very stupid. So we thought, we'd be stupid enough to start our own platform. But instead of starting a social media company, let's start a new media company. So we started our first company called Chip Hazard. So we started in 2009, and by 2011, a few weeks before I graduated from the university, we got a couple of acquisition offers. One offer was more like a Nigerian prince ki jo jaise emails aati hai na, I have this much money in the bank, there's some inheritance left. So we got that email, we laughed it off, but at the dinner table conversation, we have this habit of sharing everything on the dinner table with the family on how our day went. So I shared, we got this email that someone wants to buy our company for X amount, and this seems very ridiculous. And my dad was like, what would happen? Just start a conversation. It's a scam, so don't fall for it, but let's, just start a conversation. You're not paying anything for that, and you have time to do that. So we engaged with them for the acquisition offer. Suddenly, lawyers jumped in. There was a whole due diligence process. They visited Pakistan, and suddenly, it became very real. We never realized that you can make so much money by building a platform, sitting in Pakistan while you're still a student, both of us studying, because before all of this, when I was in my intermediate, there was a time when we used to open the Sunday newspapers, look at ads of in the job section, and figure out that I don't have this skill set, I can't qualify for this job, I don't have this skill set, maybe we'll get like an 8,000 rupees job or something based on our skill set. So we've always been thinking on how we can get a 9 to 5 job, both me and my brother. But accidentally, we got into social media marketing, and through that, we started Chip Hazard. We get that acquisition offer, and like a couple of months before that acquisition offer, there was one of my professor. He always used to tell me that, Adnan, you would never be able to do anything in life. You'll hardly graduate and stuff like that. And this is the time when nobody uses their real name on social media and on the internet, right? There are screen name concepts. And he didn't knew that part-time he was working for us. So because the team was remote, not because we liked remote working, but that was the necessity. This is before the work from home kind of concept came into Pakistan, because 9 to 5 we were in university, and from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. we were working from our own bedroom. So we were sleeping like 4 maximum 5 hours a day, and that too in breaks, like not in one stretch, because we were working very hard. So we sold that company. And you asked, what are the challenges that you get, right? Because we sold that, and my dad was like, always, you need to declare everything and stuff like that. So the assets were transferred, the money was in escrow, they wired the money. We had an account in bank because we wanted to, be working with a newcomer bank. And then the payments that initially we used to get was in our bank account. But turns out when the large transaction came in, the branch manager called and they said, this is unreal. This is some kind of a money laundering scam that you're doing. So we can't clear the transaction. And I checked the email on my phone, and this is before 3G even came to Pakistan. So there's Edge coming in. So I just rushed to the bank and I was like, these are our contracts. We sold this company. This is how it's done. So he's like, नहीं, ये ऐसे नहीं हो सकता बेटा, आप अपनी एज देखें, आप इतने पैसे कमा रहे हैं, ये तो नहीं हो सकता, मैं ट्रांजैक्शन क्लियर नहीं कर सकता. My dad went to the bank trying to explain the manager on how this happened. He said, nahin, I respect you, but this seems like a money laundering scam. And my brother told him, money laundering, you have to send money out. This is coming in. So what's the problem? But he didn't. He said, no, there's nothing doing. We'll return the money and we'll not give. So for, I think, 25 days, he held the money in his treasury and then returned it back to the center. And now imagine you don't have a UK visa, so you can't go and talk to those guys. All the assets are transferred. They wired the money from your bank because you got a confirmation. And as kids, you were stupid enough to give them a confirmation that the money is in. And it's now 25 days. And after that, your money has been sent back. And we don't know that will they ever send that money back to us, or they say, the assets are transferred, we don't know you anymore. But lucky for us, they had good work ethics, so they said, no, we'll transfer you the money. So we had to then reroute it through another mechanism, because even when we were doing that, we got a call from the new manager at a different bank, because this time we went with Standard Chartered Bank, which is another progressive bank. We thought this is an international bank, so we'll open an account there. So the money came in, the manager reported it internally somewhere, and then suddenly this organization, which is a certain kind of organization, kind of invited us to their office. Not invited, but forced us to come to their office. We went there. There were a couple of guys in uniforms sitting there. They didn't asked us to get seated in the office. They said the interrogation type ka jo room hota hai wo wahan. What are you guys doing? We were like, this is the contracts, and because we know where we were going, so we took everything. We shared everything with them, and they said, बेटा इस तरह तो कोई भी वेबसाइट बनाए, बेचे और पैसे कमाए. तो हमने कहा जी आप करें, तो फिर ऐसे तो मैं भी कर लूँ. मैंने कहा आप बिल्कुल कर लें. So, but luckily, they kind of understood. They saw the contracts, and then after like 1 hour or 1.5 hours, they said, "Okay, we'll give you the clearance." And then Standard Chartered was kind enough to release the money for us, and that is how we got the first acquisition done. So, I think smaller challenges, but of course, because our target market was the U.S., our audience was in the U.S. The money was coming from the US, so we were not interacting with regulators in Pakistan that much. So not that kind of challenge that we face right now. So after Asafi did our first acquisition, I said I'll go and do my MBA now. So then I spent 6 months kind of figuring out where do I want to go for my MBA. And I went to LUMS, I became close with some of the professors there. But as soon as I got admissions there, those professors left and went to KSBL. So I said, because I wanted to study from them, I am not going to waste my time at LUMS. And I don't like Lahore, to be honest, anyways. A lot of people disagree. I thought I'll come back and then go to Karachi and then join KSBL. So I came here, started studying. Again, I was never a good student, but somehow I was not being challenged enough in those classes. But this was a rigorous program, so 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. you were in the university no matter what. There were so many classes and everything. But after 5 p.m. I had, again, time at my hand. So this time, while my brother was working for the family business, I said I'll start something of my own again. So with one of my friends, I started my second company called Cupertino Times. And this was a technology-focused blog. And in that blog, basically we were like Apple fans. We've been following Apple for a very, very long time. As soon as the product, Apple released a new iPhone, we used to have it in like within 48 hours. So we used to pay someone who used to stand in the line in Silicon Valley at an Apple store, get the product, we pay an air hostess to carry that into Pakistan. So we used to pay about $500, and this is the time when iPhone costed about $400, $399. But we used to spend an additional $500 to make sure that we get it within like the first 24 to 48 hours. It was kind of stupid, but again, we were students, very young, we did a lot of stupid things. But because we were getting early access to these devices, we started writing about them. And we were writing simple things like, how can you improve your battery life? How can you merge two Wi-Fis and improve your speed and stuff like that? And because our content was so high quality that we were able to sign syndication partnerships with some of the leading publications in the world. So we were being featured on New York Times, Wall Street Journal, BBC, CNN, Gizmodo, Lifehacker, like all these guys. And in the first 9 months, we had over 1 million users coming on the platform. We had a small team of about 7 people, some of them in the US, some of them in Pakistan. Again, working at night from our own bedroom. But this time I had like a proper setup within my bedroom with like 3 screens and different Apple devices connected. So, and we were not doing this time for the money. We were just making sure that we do it so that we can afford the devices that we like. Because we wanted to play around with these devices and they were so expensive. And my dad was like, I'm not going to pay for this. So if you want to do it on your own. So that is how we started the second company. And we were doing a lot of this. And in the first 9 months, we were growing, but because we were very data driven and market research oriented, we realized that because our customers is in the US, our audience is in the US, and all these marketing firms that we work with who advertise on our platform are also in the US. So sooner or later, if we are not closer to our customers, our growth will hit a plateau. So we need to move to the US. So we spoke to like my dad, he connected us with some of his friends in the business circle. Most of them said, this is great, go live the American dream. You already have a small team there. Go make it big there and then come back to Pakistan and then retire in have a luxury lifestyle and all that. based on those advice, we kind of got approval for a couple of people, got them the H-1B, moved them to the US. And we were also planning to move to the US this time. And I was about 27 at that time. And while we were planning this move, because we have this disease, both me and my brother, that we like to talk to a lot of people before making a decision and then look at the numbers a lot. So because over the years we had also developed certain mentors and advisors and those connections in the valley, we kind of started talking to those guys and asking them that hey, we are planning to move to the US. Where do you think we should go? Which in our budget, which area is more suitable? Which gym should we go? Which coffee shop we should be spending more time on? Because this is more like a publication company, right? So you need to have your own sources. So we were doing a lot of that. And then this one mentor, he kind of said, Adnan, what you're doing is probably the stupidest thing that you'll ever do in your life. And we didn't understand, like, why would he say that? So we asked him, like, please help me understand. So he said, I can't help you understand this, but let me connect you with one of my friends in India who might be able to help you understand this. So he connected us with the founder of Wipro, Azim Premji. Wipro, by the way, is one of the leading IT outsourcing companies in the world, one of the top 5 in India. So we got lucky, like we got a 30-minute slot with Azim Saab, and ended up like a 3.5-hour conversation. So every 30 minutes, his secretary used to, enter and say, sir, there's a next meeting, and he's just like, aage kar de, aage kar de. And he's a Parsi, so he has that kind of a way and love for people within the region. So because 1 hour he kind of shared his story on how he wanted to come to Pakistan and set up a Wipro office that could have been the Middle Eastern headquarters for IT outsourcing, and then how he got stuck in regulatory approvals and whatnot happened, but that's kind of another story. And then for the next 1 hour, he kind of listened to us on what our plans were, and he really drilled down on why do you want to stay there? Okay, what are your plans after that? How do you see yourself when you turn 50? What are your family values? And he just went down and asked some really tough questions, and we had never thought about those questions. And then after that 1 hour, he said, I agree with your friend. This is probably the dumbest decision that you will ever make, and you'll regret this for the rest of your life. And this was again very strange, and we were blank. Our faces went white because we thought we knew what we were doing. And this guy who we looked up to for many years and how he has built a great legacy is saying that you're stupid. So we asked him, why do you say that? And then for the next 30 minutes, he kind of explained the Asian market thesis to us. He was like, Beta, if you look at the world, especially modern times, Asia was always the population center of the world. But the reason why we never had local brands was because our population was never able to afford those products. And for the first time in the modern world, when China started adding a lot of people in the middle class, which is in 2005 to 7, you see a lot of Chinese brands popping up. In fact, a lot of these Western brands had to rely on China for their growth during that time. And he said, after China, India started doing that same thing, but they were adding so many people in the middle class that India was becoming a real thing. And he said, right now, there's only 1 unicorn in India, but I see at least 5 more coming in the next 5 years. Turns out in the exact same time, 50 unicorns came out of India. And he mentioned how these NRIs are coming back to India, starting companies which are on path to becoming unicorns. And he said, Beta, after China and India, Pakistan is adding most number of people in the middle class. So if you leave this market now, you'll regret this for the rest of your life. And that gave us goosebumps. We were like, we don't want to regret anything in life. But at the same time, if we don't move, we cannot scale this company beyond a certain point. And if we can't scale this, what's the point of wasting our life in something that we cannot scale or we no longer believe in? So because we were growing very fast, by that time we had a couple of acquisition offers. So we called the first company that had ever sent us an acquisition offer, called them, we were like, we are ready to sell, are you still interested? They were like, yes. So it was a very fast process because we understood how DD worked. We kind of had everything in place before we reached out to them. And just after, within 2 weeks of speaking to him, we had sold that company to a Nevada-based company called CTSD Web Publishing. And again, my family was like, what did you do? You were growing, you were making, a good company, you just sold too early. Like, we don't care, we just don't want to waste our life in something we don't believe in anymore. So we just, sold that, and then.
And by the way, which bank did you use for the second transaction?
So by the second time, we had kind of understood how these banks also work, so we were able to get, a good deal during that time. So this time we got, by the way, just because you asked Bank Al Habib, they gave us a very good forex rate as well.
We have representation from Mizan Bank and from Standard Chartered, but sadly, I think from Al Habib we don't. Sarwat, do we have anyone from Al Habib today? No. Okay.
So they were really quick with that. We kind of sold that company, and for the next 2 weeks we didn't do anything. We just slept for like 2 weeks, 15 hours a day, and then my dad came and he was like, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. You can't do it by sleeping. Why don't you join the family office and stuff like that? And my brother instantly said, we need at least 2 years to take a sabbatical. वो एक IT वालों में बीमारी होती है ना, 2 साल की छुट्टी करेंगे, relax करेंगे. So we were also on the same track. The first thing that I saw was my mother entering the room and was like, ये क्या तमाशा है, 2 साल कौन छुट्टी करता है? This is not the age for you to take a break for 2 years. Sure, you have done something, but 2 years is not something that you're allowed to. But like typical Asian parents, they're worried about their kids, so they kind of made sure that we stayed on the right path. But they also understood, so we got a chance to, take some time off. They said take 1 year, but in the next 6 months, like we had this bug, so we really wanted to start something again. So during that 6 months, we traveled a lot. We traveled to Indonesia, Malaysia, like the entire south side. We spent a lot of time exploring Southeast Asia. And during that time, we came across the Indonesian startup ecosystem up close. And while we were looking at how this startup ecosystem is unfolding in Indonesia, we realized that we had read about this in India a few years ago. So let's just see if there's a pattern. So sitting on the beach, we kind of plotted about 1,300 startups from the consumer internet space on a timeline. And we found 2 very clear patterns. The first one was whatever was happening in India, with a 3-year lag, the same phenomena was happening in Indonesia. And with a 7-year lag, the same thing was happening in Pakistan. So if a company did well in India, chances of the same type of company doing well in Indonesia after 3 years were like many folds. And the lag with Pakistan was 7 years. So we were 10 years behind India, 7 years behind Indonesia. So it was more like finding a time machine, right? You can see what worked in those 2 countries and see if you can localize that. So that was a game changer for us. By looking at those data points, we could see what worked. So there were certain startups like the Khata companies, which were receiving a lot of funding in India. 3 years later, the same phenomena happened in Indonesia. They got a lot of funding. But in India, Khata companies started struggling. Indonesia, they started struggling. And in both countries, they were not able to do well. In Pakistan, about 4 companies started. They raised more than $10 million each. All of them shut down. So we realized that the pattern is real, right? So you just need to make sure that you make it faster, better, and cheaper. So our core principle was that if you can look at an idea that worked in India, that worked in Indonesia, fast forward that, and if you can make it faster, better, and cheaper, launch that in Pakistan. And that would work. And that could be anything, right? The second pattern we saw was that innovation in the tech space generally happens in waves. So the first wave of innovation comes from e-commerce. And when e-commerce is adopted at a mass scale, then comes fintech. And this is even more important for people in the room. Like a lot of people at that time were just pumping money on fintech, like Alibaba's of the world and everyone. But a lot of people missed that if you look at any geography, whether it's Central Asia, you look at Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, India, wherever you look, fintech would never be able to be sure there might be one or two outliers, but in vast majority cases, fintech cannot be scaled or become very, very successful without the mass adoption of e-commerce. So when e-commerce is adopted at mass scale, then comes fintech, because once you couple e-commerce with fintech, your customer acquisition cost literally goes down to zero. So you bring customers in through e-commerce, but you earn through fintech. So that's why they call it an iron triangle, where you bring a fintech company, an e-commerce company, and then at the bottom you bring in a logistics company. They call it the iron triangle, where if you complete that and you are in top 2 for all 3 of these industries, nobody can beat you. You look at the 2 largest fintech companies in China. One is owned by Alibaba, which owns the largest e-commerce company in China. The second one is owned by Tencent. They own Jingdong, which is the second largest e-commerce company in China. The 2 largest fintech companies in India are owned by Flipkart and Paytm, which are e-commerce companies. The largest fintech company or one of the largest fintech companies in Indonesia is owned by a group that also owns one of the largest marketplaces in Indonesia. So we realized that a lot of people are spending money on fintech, but we don't have e-commerce. Because by this time, we only had one e-commerce platform, which is called Daraz. They had a negative net promoter score. So we realized that they might be doing something wrong, because the word of so the brand equity is real. They have built a great brand, but most of the people associate a negative emotion with that brand. So how do we change that, or what are they doing wrong that we can improve? Because e-commerce is nothing new. It's been done all across the globe. Every economy that's to a certain scale has an e-commerce player that's valued over like a few $1 billion. At least you look at LATAM, you have like $100 billion company called Mercado Libre. You look at Central Asia, you have Uzum, which started very similar to the same story, like started with a marketplace, acquired a digital bank, started a logistics company. Now they're valued in 5 years from start to today. They're valued about 2.5 billion pounds on the London Stock Exchange. So every of these markets has e-commerce. So we don't reinvent the wheel, right? So let's just learn from our peers. So we started, we thought, where we can learn from. So we went to the UAE, spoke to the founders of Souk.com, which was the largest e-commerce company there, now acquired by Amazon. So we went, spoke to their founders, and by the way, we didn't knew them before, and we didn't knew anyone who knew the founders before. It was just through a lot of hard work. So what we did was we have made so many calls to different startups in India, Indonesia, the UAE. We kind of had developed a pattern that if a company has raised from $1 to $10 million, you call the number listed on the website, the founder will pick up the call. If they have raised between 10 and 50, the secretary will pick up, but they'll connect you to the founder if you know the founder's name. But if they've raised more than 50 to 100, good luck connecting to the founder. So we realized Souk has raised $700 million. How do we reach out to those founders? We couldn't. We figured out one of their partners is an ex-Pakistani who was born and raised in Pakistan but moved to the UAE or Saudi when he was 18. But of course, Pakistan sentiment always helps.
What's his name?
Asif Kashodia.
Okay.
So he's an ex-PNG guy, and then spent a lot of time in PNG Saudi, and then started Souk as a CFO for Souk. So what we did was we just went to their office, and we were like, we want to meet this guy. And then the secretary looked at us as we were aliens. You know, he was like, we have over 5,000 employees. Everyone wants to meet the founder. You cannot. So what we did was something like very creepy. We just sat at the reception for 6 hours. We were like, we're not going until we meet the guy. And they were also kind enough. They were like, this is a public, because it's a public reception, we won't say you anything, but don't bug us. We were like, sure. And when he came out of the office, we went to him and we were like, we're, coming from Pakistan, we're just fresh out of college, we need your advice. He looked at his watch, he was like, I have like 3 minutes, I'm going to the car, you can walk with me. We were like, sure. We walked with him, like, spent 3 minutes. He's like, I don't have time today, maybe tomorrow. We're like, sure. The next day, we're again at the reception, 6 hours, waiting for him to come out. And then 5 or some hours later, the receptionist gets a call, are the kids still there? And she said, yes. So he calls us up in his office. And he then kind of, spent a lot of time with us. In fact, the entire weekend, trying to help us understand how e-commerce works, what are the advantages of doing it in the Middle East, what are the challenges. And he said it's really hard, it's not easy, but he kind of gave us some good direction. And then he also said, India is doing it really good, their companies are scaling very, very fast. But while we were doing our first startup, because we had an obsession with what Indian startups were doing, we were calling them up like very regularly, and without knowing anyone there, same story, like pick up the phone, call the guys, try to connect with them and start talking to them. And during that process, without realizing, we interacted with the Flipkart founders and the Snapdeal founders when they were just starting out, when they were just 10 employees. And because we had reached out to them very earlier on, and we stayed in touch through like quarterly reports and stuff like that, we had developed like a certain relationship with them. So they gave us time. So we studied the Indian ecosystem. They kind of explained how the Indian market evolved, what are the challenges, what are the do's and don'ts for India, how they kind of evolved. So we did a lot of that. We studied the Indian market. And then they said, okay, we take a lot of inspiration from China. So we went to China twice. And in each trip, we did about 1,000 interviews. So what we used to do was we used to fill our bags with chocolates, go to the subway, and hand out chocolates and ask people questions. And we were asking like very simple questions like, why do you buy online? When do you buy online? What type of purchases do you do from Jingdong versus Taobao? Why do you prefer one platform versus the other? And we did a lot of like these market research. And during this research, we encountered some like very interesting stories on how the Chinese market kind of evolved, very much like Pakistan. Initially, they also were a low consumer trust society. There were a lot of scams. But because Alibaba has raised a lot of money, they kind of kept pumping in the money till they were able to sort those out. But at the same time, there was a big problem of counterfeit in China. So we met this guy in a subway station, and he said, if you really want to understand, give me $100. And it was a strange request, like in China where people trade in RMB, why is he asking for a $100 bill? As stupid as we are, we just took out a $100 bill and paid him. And in front of us, he opened the Taobao app, which is owned by Alibaba. He placed an order of a Louis Vuitton bag. It was $100. So he basically asked us to pay for that order so he doesn't have to pay it from his own pocket. And he said, the delivery date is 3 days later. Why don't you, meet me at this coffee place at this time? So we were like, okay. 3 days later, we went to that coffee shop. He came with a large parcel in his hand and very happy, like, coming. And then he showed us the parcel, opened it in front of us. There was a Louis Vuitton bag. Of course, it's a knockoff because you can't get that for $100. So we're like, you wasted 3 days. We could have just gone back. This is nothing new. We knew the counterfeit problem is all over the world. So what are you trying to tell us? And he said, let me show you something interesting now. So he took us to that brand store in Beijing. And what he did was something unreal. He went to the sales guy. He said, I got this as a gift. I don't like the color. Can you please replace it for me? So what the sales guy did was there's an authentication code within those bags. So they authenticated the bag. It got authenticated. They switched the color, gave him a new one, and the new one original cost about like 18,000 or something dollars, and he walked out of there. I was like, what just happened? You know, uh, and we were just so shocked that we sat on the footpath for like a good 5 minutes. We couldn't understand what happened. He was like, no, this counterfeit is a real problem. If you look at the Alibaba prospectus or their IPO prospectus or like their annual report, every single year they have a whole chapter on counterfeits and what they're trying and their efforts that they're trying to do to stop that. You know, but I said, but the bag got authenticated, and then he kind of shared the story on how that works and how the counterfeit mechanism works. Uh, but we'll not get into that right now because then it will become like an hour-long session. So he kind of explained to help us understand that Alibaba is a pure marketplace. In any market where the consumer trust is low, a pure marketplace never works. The reason is because the customer is cheating, the vendors are cheating, and as a marketplace in the middle, you have no way to figure out who is cheating at what time. So sure, over the years you build enough history so you can track through that what are the fraud rates, but until you build that history, it's almost impossible for you to do that. And if you want to build that history, it takes years to do that. And for that, you need to pump in hundreds of millions of dollars within that. So on the contrary, there's another platform called Jingdong, which is owned by Tencent, the second largest e-commerce company in China, but also the largest in terms of electronics. They said they're a managed marketplace. A managed marketplace is something that only allow authorized brands to sell on the platform. So if you're ordering a Samsung phone, it will be coming from Samsung Pakistan. Or if you're ordering like a Xiaomi phone, it will be coming from the Xiaomi factory directly or by the authorized representative of the brand. So the trust level is very, very high. So that was like an instant moment for us that if you want to do something in e-commerce segment, the go-to way would be to launch a managed marketplace in Pakistan. So that is how we got the idea for PriceOi, and that is how we kind of began the journey that we are on track today.
Excellent, amazing journey. I've got an idea as well, and probably after listening to the story, I think that's a plot for that can be a plot for a good, Lollywood or Bollywood movie. So I'll try and sort of, put an IP on that. I think fascinating story. We can open the forum for questions as well. Meanwhile, just want to understand how you managed to make contacts with the people like mentors who actually mentored you. I think you, in my first meeting with you, mentioned about Steve Wozniak. So can you sort of give us a rundown about the kind of experience that you had with this Steve Wozniak? How you reached out to him?
Yes, Steve was not mentoring us, but he was more like he advised us a couple of times. So basically, while we were running our second company, Apple is very secretive about their product launches. But because we were really working hard, we were able to develop some relationships in China. And one of our fans kind of leaked the iPhone 4S images and details from the Chinese factory to us. We kind of published it for the world. And when we did that, we got a lot of backlash from the different platforms that you should not be doing this. It's bad for the industry. But we checked it, it was more like everything was legally covered. The images was owned by the person who was sending it to us, and we were not leaking the device, but the details for that. So we were like fully covered. We did that. So a lot of people tried to pressure us at that time, and we didn't give in to that pressure. And after that, that because that story got like really viral, Steve read it somewhere, and then he reached out to us through email. That you did a good job, and I really appreciate what you did. You held your ground, because Steve Wozniak is not he's different from Steve Jobs, right? Who was the main architect for Apple, but he's also a co-founder, but he retired like very, very earlier on. He has a very rebel kind of a nature. So he kind of wrote an email, never really, paid attention to that email. One night, like at 3 a.m., we get a call and they was like, "Hey, this is Steve," and we were like, maybe who's Steve, right? And you really never even think that someone at that level would be reaching out to you. So that is how we kind of reached out. We kind of disconnected the call. We thought it was a prank call. Then he emailed us from his official email ID that it was really me. And then we tried to call back. He was not picking. Like a week later, we we got a chance to speak to him, and that is how we connected with him for the first time.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
So mostly by luck and by chance. There's no like real.
Well, there's a
Right.
lot of hard work put in by you, and waiting outside the office of a co-founder and somebody who's running a large business, just waiting hours and hours for that person to come out and give you 3 minutes. That's sheer hard work. I thought, we'll come here, hear some good stories about, you making money overnight without putting in a lot of hard work, and we can sort of emulate that. But that's, I think हम गरीब ही ठीक है मेरा ख्याल है फिर उसके बाद ना. So just out of curiosity, where did you get your initial funding for setting up Priceway? If you can share any numbers, the kind of funding
Yeah.
that was required, how you mobilized that,
Yeah.
how much of that was actually funded by you, your family, and friends, and
So we started Priceway in 2020. January 2020 was the first time we said we'll start Priceway, register the company. In fact, in 2020 we didn't even have a company. By 2021 we registered the company, but we kind of registered the trademark. We wanted to start. We spent about 2 months convincing some of the best engineers we know to join us, leave their existing jobs, and come on a mission to change the way people shop in Pakistan. Um, like a month later in March, COVID came, everything went down the hill, everything was stopped. It was a very scary moment, to be honest, because we could like spend 2 months convincing some people to quit their job, join us, and now we don't know if we'll be able to make their payroll or not. But luckily, right place at the right time again, just by chance. After a few weeks or maybe a month, the government allowed e-commerce companies to start operating and the logistics company to start operating. So we kind of did that, but there was a lot of hard work because there was no warehouse, right? Again, because this is COVID, my room was my warehouse. And then I was personally going to pick up the orders from these vendors, coming in, packing it all night, me and my brother and two of our employees at my house, and then shipping it the next day. So we did that from our initial funding. We did it for a year, and during that time we got some interest inbound for investment. They said, we really like what you're doing and we want to put some money in, because this is the time when VC space is getting active. And generally, globally, if you see the interest rate going down, the US Fed rate when goes down, a lot of money, because the opportunity cost, it spills into VC, and a lot of money was coming in. So in Pakistan context, some family offices also wanted to invest. But we were very clear that until I have my own money, I'll not take someone else's money, because this is like not believing in your own idea. So I remember one conversation I had was one of the leading family offices. They invited me to their office. All three of us went there. They spent like a few hours showing us around, telling what they're doing. And they said, we really want to put some money into the business. And I told them that until I sell my car and put that money into the business, I'm not going to take your money, because taking someone's money is more like a responsibility. I can be stupid with my own money, but if it's someone else's money, I have to be really careful. And that is a scary point in life when you're taking someone else's money as well. So there has to be a lot more discipline, and we thought we were not disciplined enough to take outside capital. So we didn't. But during that time, we got about 6 offers. And then one of the mentors, Yusuke and Terusan, is basically someone who went to Harvard and then saw how e-commerce is working in the US, went to Japan, started his company at the age of 28, listed his company on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, which is like very, very difficult because Tokyo is very strict regulator. And then he started his VC fund, invested in a couple of companies in Asia, Japan, and the US. So we were in touch with him because we realized that we could relate with him because he IPO'd his company at 28, started at 26. We were starting at about 28, this similar age. So we kind of cold emailed him. He was kind enough to reply, and then every quarter we used to send him a progress report on this is what we are doing, this is where we are, these are the next quarter targets. And every quarter we used to send them, and we never got a reply for the first 9 months. So the 3 reports we just sent, never got a reply. And then he started responding to our emails. So whenever we sent a progress report, he used to spend like a good 30 minutes on that and then gave us feedback. And that was like real valuable feedback that we got. So we really respected him. And he was traveling somewhere. So he was going through Pakistan. I don't know how that worked. He was going to Singapore from Japan, and somehow he got a ticket where he had like a 3-hour transit in Karachi, which was again like, I don't know how that happened because that never does. So he said, I'm coming to Karachi, I have 3 hours, but I'm not allowed to get out because this is a transit. So if you want, we can meet. So then we flew from Karachi, took a flight in a way that we get that 3-hour transit to match the time, and we met him. So like really insightful discussion, we had that. And a month later when we sent the next progress report, he said, Adnan, I want to invest. We're like, Teru, we're not taking the money because we really don't need it. He said, no, you don't understand. And this is the time when we're doing $5 million a year. So he's like, I invested in Tokopedia, which is the largest e-commerce company in Indonesia, now valued about $10 billion. So he said, I invested in Tokopedia when they were doing $5 million a year. You reached that point in half the time they did. So if you need my advice or ever want me to reply to your email, you need to take my money. So we were like, okay, sure, we'll take the money, but we don't have a round structure in mind because we never thought about it. He said, take your time, think about it, and then get back to me. But you only have like 5 days. So because he wanted to, make sure that, and he's very kind, like spent a lot of time mentoring us. So then we went, opened our inboxes, saw all the term sheets that we had previously received. So we raised our first round. The first round we did was Fatma Group coming in as a family office, then artistic group coming in. So all of these guys said, because we were raising a very small round of about $500,000, all of them said that we'll take the entire round. But we were adamant that we are bringing you in just because of the value you bring to the table and not because of the money. So we don't want you to take the full round. And this was the first investment in the VC space in Pakistan that happened as a syndicate. So Fatma Group came in, Artistic Group based out of Karachi came in, and then Kohart Cement Group came in. And Kohart's story was also very interesting because we found him as, very much like our own self. He called our helpline and he said, I placed a couple of orders. I have a great experience with your platform. And because I love it, I want to invest. And we were like, we're not taking money. So he used to call us every few months and not like our personal numbers, our helpline.
Nobody calls and offers me money, so I don't know why that's the case.
So that's how we raised our first round.
Okay. Great. And just curious how Peter Thiel ended up being a shareholder in your company.
Yeah, so when we were raising our second round, so the first round was about $450,000. We wanted to raise $500,000. We had signed term sheets, but then there were some regulatory challenges for one of the funds. They dropped out, small ticket size, so we really just closed it at 450. When we were raising our second round, which was a proper institutional round, we divided it in 2 halves. And this also we learned from the advice that we got from the Indian founders, was to give certain allocation to institutional funds and keep some allocation for unicorn founders. So we deliberately designed 20% of the round would be for unicorn founders and then 80% would be for institutional investors. And because the round got oversubscribed, we were lucky that we were able to pick the right investors. So everyone we got on board was because of a strategic reason. So one of our investors is Palm Drive Capital. So the partner at Palm Drive was on the board for Jingdong for a very long time. So he bought that knowledge. So we got him, gave them some allocation, got them on board. Then we have the Hoff Capital guys on our cap table, which is the largest family office in Egypt. And we got them on board not only because of their Egyptian knowledge, but also because they owned Orascom, and we thought, with Jazz being a leading telco in Pakistan, we might be able to need at some point in time we might need their help to connect us with the right people there, and also because they gave us unreleased Yeezys. Uh, to, and then we kind of got a couple of other unicorn founders, like the Imad from Bank Mercury, which is about $20 billion in the US right now. Young guy, started very humbly, about I think 31 years of age. So we got him on the unicorn side. So right now we have about 4 unicorn founders, but before Peter came in, we had 3 and we had closed the round. So the round was closed, and I was in LA. One of my friends, who's also a small, who also has a small allocation on the cap table, a few decimal points. He said, why don't you come meet me at the office while you're here? I'll take you for lunch. I was like, sure. Because lunch is very expensive in LA, I was like, I'll take up that offer. So I went to meet him. While I was on the way, he kind of messaged that, someone important is coming, so I have to go back to the house. Why don't you come drop by my house? I was like, sure, I can do that. So he sent his address. He lives like in Hollywood Hills. He shared the address. I went there, and suddenly, like, Peter Thiel is there, and he said, "Why don't you come and have a hike with me?" And we had a hike all the way up to the Hollywood Hills. So the Thiel Capital is something that really, really looks at the numbers. So they realize that, they have missed the boat of e-commerce in China, India, Indonesia, and he didn't want to make the same mistake in Pakistan. So initially they offered us a job. They're like, why don't you come and join us? They said, you're one of the best product guys I've met over the years, so why don't you join us? We're like, no, we just closed around. We're happy in what we're doing. They said, okay, then I want to invest. And we told them that the round is closed, but you don't say that to certain people. And we realized that, they have a lot of connections, and they can help us connect with the right founders. For us, it's always been who can help us connect with the right founders, because we can short circuit our growth by many years by talking to the right people. So instead of making our own mistakes, talk to the right people and learn from their experience and implement that rather than making your own mistakes. So then we gave him a small allocation, got him on board on the cap table. And this was the first investment that Peter Thiel made in Pakistan. And this was through his personal office, not through Founders Fund or Valar or any of the other funds. This was his personal check coming in from directly his own pocket.
So you've done 2 rounds of funding. First
Yes.
was $450,000 and second was
Yeah, so we raised about $9 million in total.
$9 million altogether.
Yes.
And you did it all by yourself, or did you engage any
We did it on our own.
Okay.
Because one thing that you'll realize that in the VC space, VCs hate consultant. You bring the name consultant on the table, they'll write you off. That's kind of a strange phenomena there, but they believe that consultant makes you slow. So if you have a conviction, just go with it and follow through.
And with that $9 million, how much of the company they actually own now?
So with the investors, we still own the majority.
Okay.
They own a minority stake.
Okay. And by we, you actually mean?
Me, my brother, and some of the employees. So we have a stock option pool for early employees. And even new employees who spend like a minimum year, they qualify for stock options. Because we believe that we're not like a traditional factory where your assets are your machines that you need to protect. Our assets are our people, It's institutional knowledge is all with the people. So we need to make them part of the journey. And the only way we can do that is by actually making them shareholders in the company.
Okay, lovely. I think we're receiving a lot of questions from the audience, and some of them are about the impact of AI, or at least how AI is going to impact the way e-commerce is going to work? So, or is it already impacting the way you operate and the e-commerce space generally operates?
AI is such a new phenomena that it will take some time to evolve. Even though it has already started touching almost every field of our life, um, we have been implementing AI before it was called AI. It was called data sciences, and before that, data analytics. We do some aspects of that, but not to an extent that these large LLMs are doing it, of course, because we also need to see where we can save money by using. So there are two ways you can use AI. One is to bring efficiency and save money, and then the other is to boost sales. Right now, we have only been able to crack the cost-saving part of within Priceoil by using AI, and not how we can increase the sales and boost it even more through AI. So we haven't been able to do that right now.
Consumer electronics inherently seems like a very competitive business. You have so many people actually retailing and dealing in them. So, how do you make? First of all, how do you quote such competitive prices? A lot of people actually want to know that and maybe replicate that in some other business,
Yeah.
not exactly become your direct competitors. And secondly, are you profitable?
We are profitable. We have added more money on the balance sheet than we raised. So we've been in the first 2 years we were never unit on a loss on a unit economic level ever, but we were burning some money on the bottom line in the first 2 years. But since last 3 years, every single quarter has been profit after tax and not like EBITDA positive or any of that gimmick. So we believe that you need to run a business like a business, and it has to be profitable. So we're growing about 40% a year. When we were not profitable, we were growing about 130%. So sure, the growth has slowed down a bit, but we feel that by talking to a lot of these international players, we still have a few years before they decide to come to Pakistan. So we want to use that time to, actually add to the balance sheet.
Okay. Is cash on delivery in Pakistan a hurdle to the growth of your business or e-commerce in
For
general?
us, no. I think digital payments is.
Okay.
It's
Why is that?
counterintuitive. In a lot of these government engagements or state bank engagements that we go to, they think cash on delivery is bad. And we tell them that this is simple economics, right? If, as a platform, a gateway pays me T plus 1, the settlement time is T plus 1. For a courier company, it's also T plus 1. So as a company, I'm getting the money at the exact same time or almost the exact same time that I would get even if it's a digital payment or cash on delivery. But for cash on delivery, it's free. For digital payments is 1.6% MDR. And if your average ticket size is about 120,000 rupees, 1.6% is more than what I'd add to my bottom line.
Okay, you didn't answer the point about how do you offer such competitive rates? So, how do you manage to get these deals?
Three things. One, the first principle that we have is, which is counterintuitive, and we don't see that in a lot of businesses in Pakistan, is the mentality for growth. So instead of making 40% margin on every trade that you make, we have razor thin margins. We say even if you make like 300 rupees a product, sell it, right? And then on growth, you can make money. So if you look at a traditional electronics retailer or a mobile retailer in Pakistan, so you would assume the biggest retailers or the shops which are doing most trade would either be in Sadr, Karachi, or maybe Defense, right? But you would be surprised, an average shop in Defense sells about 150 phones a month. And then they have costs like, they're renting a commercial space, they have commercial electricity, they have to have a security guard, they have to pay the union, they have about 3-4 people working, including the cleaning staff. Then you have an AC, blowing in the shop. Then there are certain added costs to running a physical brick and mortar. And you have to divide all that cost to 150 units. And Priceoil, we sell about 150 units every 5 minutes.
Wow, okay. That explains it.
And then our cost is also very lean. We have like warehouses in industrial area. We really don't have like polished offices or stuff like that. just bare bone
Yeah, I've
offices.
been to your office. I've seen it.
Yes. So you must have seen like in the bullpen that we have, we don't even have tiles. It's like a cemented floor. Because we want to make sure that we give every penny that we make either back to the shareholders or pass it on to the consumer. And that is how we make money by reaching economies of scale.
And how many people do you have working in your company right now?
So right now we're very lean. So about 140 people.
And in terms of the average or median age, what sort of mix do you have?
Yeah, so I think it's very, very young.
Okay.
So our philosophy is that we hire mostly fresh college grads
Okay.
and then train them. And our training program is very rigorous. So for every 10 people we hire, only 2 or 3 stick. And by the end of the 6 weeks program, like 80% of them are gone. And we really designed it in a way that we don't want them to stick, because we want to filter those people out early on. Because if you're hiring an employee, the first 3 months would probably, he'd be learning about the company, right? So you'd be just paying his salary and he'd just be learning about the company. And it's after 3 months he'd start delivering something. So we want to make sure that when we invest in someone, he sticks with us. So so the first 50 employees that Priceoy hired, only 3 have left. And those 3, 2 of them went for their masters, one to the US, one to Germany, and one went to a local conglomerate in Pakistan. But all of them are with us. So our retention is very, very good.
And how do you keep them motivated? The general view of the people of my generation is that it's very difficult to work with a new kid, especially Gen Z. So how do you retain them? What?
Yeah, that's a kind of a difficult question. I think the way we have been managing it is just get out of their way. Because just a few days ago, somebody messaged me a screenshot of one of our employees' LinkedIn, and the way she was thanking on celebrating her like 3-year anniversary at Priceoy. For people like in my generation, we thought she was mocking. But that's how Gen Z thinks, right? Gen Alpha, they kind of think very differently. So we just get out of their way. What we believe is that hire the best people, give them autonomy, and then let them do what they're best at. Because if I look at a problem, my first instinct has always been to go and solve that problem. But for the last 4 years, I've been trying to train myself that if I see a problem, I don't have to fix it. I want to make sure that we implement a framework or empower people enough so that they can solve it. So that next time a problem comes, I don't have to jump in and they can do it on their own. And the other thing we do is in every meeting, whoever the responsible person in that meeting should be from our side, his or her immediate junior has to be in that meeting, just as a shadow person. So you need to shadow what the other person is doing. And then we do a lot of these cross discipline things. Like we have this concept called limit the hippos. So hippo is basically a highest paid person's opinion, right? So in our company, let's say the CEO has 1 vote in any decision making that we're doing, of course, except the board level decisions. For any strategic or directional decision, we follow the hippo rule where the CEO has 1 vote. The VP has about 2 votes. The manager has about 3. The delivery rider, call center agents would have about 4 to 5 votes. Because generally what we have seen, if you are in a meeting and if a CEO accidentally says or even hints that I want to go in this direction, everyone aligns in that direction. And that might not be the right direction because I'm not talking to the customer every day, or not as much as the call center agent is, or I'm not interacting with even though I do still like 5 deliveries every month today on my own, by sitting at the back of a motorcycle and interacting with the customers, but the delivery riders talk to like 30 customers every day, right? So he has more opinion. And somehow we have realized that if these junior employees kind of figure out that they can outvote the senior rank people, they really love it, So the ideas that you get are just phenomenal. It's just unreal. Some of the best ideas that we have implemented and that has helped us scale at Priceway came from the bottom. Like you were mentioning, the video that we shared to you was an idea from a call center agent. We were kind of debating on how we can build trust around the brand, and the biggest pain point was people didn't knew what was inside the parcel, right? And you're paying 150,000 rupees to a parcel because when the courier company arrives at your doorstep, they say, "Don't open the parcel. Give us the money first, and then we'll let you open it." So we were like, how we can solve that? And he was like, why can't we make a video of what's being packed? Because every flyer has a unique serial number. So if we can make a video and send it to WhatsApp, that might solve the problem. And the first reaction in our team was, that's impossible. But then my brother, who's the CTO, he was like, no, I know it's impossible, but how can we make it possible? Let's figure out a way. And we spent like 2 nights in the office. Nobody went home. Like we slept on the floor. We just brainstormed so many ideas, and we kind of were able to figure out on what should be the perfect flow to do that. And we developed technology within like a couple of months and implemented that. The second thing that the issue that we found out was we're the only company in Pakistan, and now there are only 2 companies in Asia who give open parcel delivery. Because when you send a parcel, there are about 32 people who touch their hand on that, right? And nobody knows who kind of stole or switched the product within that parcel. So no courier company takes that risk. So when we're talking to this session in a monthly town hall, all the delivery riders said that the biggest problem we say is कि when the rider arrives, they say कि हमें नहीं पता इसमें क्या है, हम पहले खोलेंगे फिर पैसे देंगे. और अगर खुल जाता है तो ब्रांड वापस नहीं लेता प्रोडक्ट, वो कहता है जी आपने खोल दिया है तो हम क्या करें. तो हमें तो पार्सल खोल के दिखाना है. एंड वी वर लाइक ये तो हो नहीं सकता क्योंकि वो कोरियर कंपनी नहीं करेगी. देन वी मेट all the courier companies, just begging them to do this for us. They said we won't do it. Then we asked them if you make the flyer transparent so that people can see what's inside. But then there were other logistical challenges related to that. And in the end, I remember one of our interns at that time, and she had no e-commerce background or anything. She joined us at like 40,000 rupees stipend as an intern. She had a B Pharma degree before, and she said, why don't we build our own logistics company? I was like, Aisha, this is very difficult. This is a very operational heavy job. We can't do that. He's like, no, sooner or later we'll have to do it. So why don't we start when it's easier? Because when your base is small, it's easier to do. It's like, I don't have the bandwidth to do it. We don't have the right person to do it. He's like, should I do it? And the room went silent, because this is an intern who just like got permanent at a very junior level, had no e-commerce background or a tech background or operational background. She was from a B Pharma and she said, I want to do it. And we were like, okay, this is budget. And in that meeting, we decided we'll launch our own logistics for Priceway. She headed that. And in 6 months, we were up and running in 3 cities. We had 3 warehouses. Our operational efficiency was better than some of these courier companies, and our delivery costs reduced by about 35%. So we could have never imagined that on Excel, or if we had looked at a CV of a young girl who had no background, we would have just laughed,
Okay, so you're managing all the deliveries itself?
For larger cities, yes.
Okay, excellent.
What we've realized with these Gen Z and Gen Alpha is that if you give them responsibility, they'll deliver. And what we do is we give them more responsibility sometimes that they can handle. But they work very well under pressure. Somehow that's different from our generation, right? We always kind of drop the ball under pressure, but these guys are really good if you give them responsibility.
Okay, so you have 140 people working in your company, and what is the annual turnover that you are doing right now?
So we're doing about between 60 to 80 million dollars a year.
Okay, 60 to 80 million dollars a year. And what would be the functional distribution of that 140 employees in terms of how many are in?
So if you talk about the core team that we have. We are about 35. So we are a very flat hierarchy kind of a company. We don't have, nobody has a dedicated office. We all sit on an open plan. You have also
I've
seen
seen
that.
it, yeah.
So we have about 35, 36 people as core team, and then the rest would be divided in customer care, operations role, pickers, packers, people like those.
They paid well.
We like to think that we are good paymasters.
Okay, lovely. I think we can go on for another maybe an hour or so, but I think we are probably already gone past our scheduled time. So, Sarvat, shall we allow the audience to ask more questions directly? If somebody, yeah, anyone, please, sir.
If you just look at the mobile phone industry, it's about 20% every year. Um, and then if you look at other electronics categories, that's about $5 to $8 billion. So just that category is very, very large. Um, and I think we're just barely started. We're just getting started. On the Iron Triangle, we have kind of figured out the logistics part, but only for larger cities. For smaller cities, obviously the challenges are different. Um, but you'd be surprised how similar we are to other countries. So for instance, we think that in our rural areas, the biggest problem is that we don't have the correct addresses, right? People would say, Kareem bhai ki dukaan pe de dein, ya Kareem bhai ki dukaan se 4 ghar chhod ke mera ghar hai. Address nahi hota. But the exact same problem existed in Brazil. The exact same problem existed in Argentina. So we can learn from some of these best practices done globally and then replicate that. So we have a logistics piece in place, but that's very small. Of course, we are the second largest marketplace in Pakistan after the RAS, but if you look at our category, we are much bigger than any other player in the market, online or offline. On the fintech side, we work with banks for their credit card customers. We are one of the leading acquirers for buy now, pay later plans for most of these banks for credit card customers. We have started building our own fintech piece where we are in the process of acquiring an EMI company. And at the same time, we have been experimenting with our own credit engines on how we are able to do that. But for that, because we're very, very conservative in lending, we are waiting for some of the policies which are stuck at the government level, which should have been done like a few years ago, but they kind of launched that. The policy goes to the parliament to get approved. They recommend some changes, comes back, then gets tabled again. So I think it's taking some time for them to officially approve the smartphone financing policy, and once that comes in, we'd be able to leverage the fintech piece.
What's the vision for the fintech side? Because a number of these fintech pioneers started with payment systems, which are actually very widespread in Pakistan, and you could probably easily do payment systems at this point in time.
Look, in payments, I think it's like a BIPS game, right? In payments, nobody makes money. It's a very, very competitive space. You only make money through lending. And so just zoom out a little bit. If you look at China or globally, the biggest e-commerce sales or the biggest sales happen on the 11/11 day. And one would be surprised कि why would you develop an because for 11/11 sale that's like 30% पूरे साल की sale आप एक दिन में कर रहे हैं. लेकिन आपको पूरे सारे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर उस एक दिन के लिए रेडी करना है. So it makes no sense to have an infrastructure ready for an entire year which stays idle for like 1 week. The reason they do that because they want the merchants कि वो suppliers loan लें उस इन्वेंट्री को रेडी करने के लिए, कंज्यूमर लोन लें उन डिस्काउंट्स को अवेल करने के लिए. सो Alibaba created 11/11 to make sure that all the merchants on their platform get a loan from them to make the inventory, and the customers take a loan from them to buy that inventory, and that is where they make the real money. So a lot of these fintechs. So if you look at microfinance banks or like digital fintech companies, I think the best years were few years ago when Kaibor was about 22%. Even then, they were barely profitable. Imagine the same companies now which have a lot of deposits, but Kaibor has dropped to about 11.5%. how would they continue to make money? The reason why Abhi Microfinance Bank did well, or because they were treating a microfinance bank, and this is from an outside perspective, so I'm not like 100% sure on this, but my take on that would be they were using the bank to get the raw material, which is the money supply, and then they had better places to lend that money uh, through their earned wage access and other systems, which was the Abhi startup kind of a thing. So they used fintech piece to get the money, but they're making the money elsewhere, which is why they're very, very successful. And no other bank was able to, do it so fast turnaround.
But sir, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Adnan, you know so much about other markets. What are your sources of information and learning? Do you read academic papers, or what are your sources? We all heard about how many founders you're speaking to and people, but that level of knowledge and information is more than just, conversations with people. Tell us your sources.
Honestly, like I don't read newspapers.
He
I
doesn't sleep
stopped.
to begin with, so he has 24 hours in his hands as opposed to.
Yeah, I think I sleep very less, so that's one. And two, I speak to a lot of founders. And every opportunity I get to meet these founders, I try to avail that. And you'd be surprised how much you can learn by being in the same room, And so there are a couple of organizations that also structurally help you do that. So one is Endeavor. So what they do is there's a selection criteria that you have to be doing $50 million plus in sales, growing 40% minimum as a CAGR, and then they'll select you. And once you're part of that organization, every year they do kind of a retreat where they invite all these founders to one camp. They'll put you in a nice resort for like 5 days, and you'll share the room, you'll wash dishes together, all that stuff, so that you get very close. And you'd be surprised. So during the last trip that happened in Portugal, the chief operating officer of Meta was there. So all these like big tech guys were there, but there were also small startups like PriceWise. So I remember we were going. They took us to a yacht, and so it was a bus ride. And while we were doing that, this gentleman next to me was in his tank top, in his shorts, wearing flip flops. Kept on asking questions the entire ride. What are your numbers? What are your sales? How are you going to improve that? But what if this happens? What if that happens? And at the end of the ride, I was like, man, you're asking me so many questions, but what's your top line? And he was running something very similar to Park Wheels, but for LATAM. And he said, last year, my top line was about $1.6 billion. This year, I closed at about 2.4. I was shocked, right? He was dressed in a way that the hotel security guard might have not even have let these guys in. So these are very simple people, but once you kind of speak to them, they just open up. One thing that I have experienced in my life is that if they sense that you are coming with an alternate agenda, you're done. The reason why we were able to get a lot of help from the Indian founders were because we were very upfront with them. We used to tell them that, hey, we are 10 years behind you. We don't want to get into the political side of things. We just want to learn. And we know that you might not be able to learn anything from us, but we would learn from you. And as someone with the same language, we'd love to learn. And once they listen that, they're very relaxed and open.
With that, I think we can close this Q&A session. Before you do that, we'd just like to thank Adnan for traveling from Islamabad just to have this audience with us. And it was one of the most fascinating sessions that I've attended.
Thank you.
I've already learned a lot from talking to Adnan before, but after today's session, I certainly think that there are certain things that I can try and implement in my company in terms of engaging with a much younger crowd that we have in our team, and see if they can help us create more value for the company. But certainly the way he operates is really amazing, and his approach towards work and everything else
Thank you.
is there for us to emulate. So with that, I'd like to thank Adnan.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Adnan, for your insightful speech. I think authenticity of leadership, a lot of hard work, a lot of passion, and good to hear about devolution. We are not talking about a lot of devolution of power in this country. So thank you for your time, and I'd request our board members who are present here, Sheikh Umar and Junaid, to please join us. Asif Sab, if you could please present our token of appreciation to Adnan Sab.